Norm's the principal investigator at the Census Bureau for the mortality studies discussed during this workshop. He has been involved in all aspects of the development and management of these studies for over 38 years. Today's presentation covers the process of developing a research proposal and follows that through to the submission of a manuscript. Take it away, Norm.
Thanks, Matt, and thank you all for coming by to attend this session. What we'd like to do here in this session is to give you the full picture of what should happen as a result of the discussions in your breakout sessions, whether they motivated you as an individual to come back on your own or to work with people that you encountered through the breakout sessions to submit a proposal for research that we hope will lead to a manuscript that can be submitted to Journal for publication. So I would like to cover that process, and I'm going to give you, now I need to scroll down. I'm not scrolling down.
Norm, you should be able to go to the next slide.
Yeah, can you move me to the next slide?
No, you should be able to take care of that. Use the left and right arrow.
I'll have to. Yeah, okay. I'll use my scroll button on my mouse. Okay. Here's the overall process. I'm going to run through this sort of quickly. I'll highlight a few things, and then I'm going to come back and discuss a bit of this in detail. So the idea here is that either through these workshops or through your colleagues or someplace, you have come up with something that you now know that our databases might be able to help you work on. So in this case, we're calling that the researcher generates a concept. The researcher then says, well, I'd like to work with one of those databases, and the researcher would contact one of the principal investigators from one of our sponsoring agencies whose basic charge would cover the area of interest in the concept that's being considered. Now, a list of PIs that we have are available through our mortality study websites, and I'll give you a reference to those at the end of this presentation. So the researcher, after discussion with the principal investigator, would then go out and complete the research proposal. Fillable forms for this. Our research proposal, you've gotten, I believe we've sent you them as a participant in this workshop, but also there are copies available for downloading on our workshop website and on the individual mortality study websites that are referenced at the end of this discussion. At this point, I'd like to take a little break just to review some of these things. Here are sort of the principal investigators' agencies and their particular focus. National Heart, Lung, and Blood, Cardiovascular Research, Cancer Institute, Cancer Research. These are very broad. So when somebody comes in with a research proposal, we try to pigeonhole them into one of these sponsoring agencies as a backer or a promoter of that research. We'd like to have our sponsors be intimately involved in the development of these research efforts. And the principal investigators can be found in either the NLMS website, that's at the bottom of the slide here, or through NLMS or through MDAC. It's the same list, and so you can go to either place with that information. Okay, so let's take a look at the actual proposal. I do want to mention that at the outset that these proposals are not meant to be enormous. They are meant to give our review committees enough of a sense of the intentions of this research proposal to consider it valuable and valid and worthwhile. So let's take a look at the first bit of the proposal. we would like to have you come up with a title and indicate your sponsoring agency, one of those that I listed previously. Sorry. In your writing group, we want to identify the lead author and co-authors. And for our purposes and for our benefit, we would like to have you indicate that you will include in your co-author list a member of the Census Bureau Statistician Research Group that participates with you in this research. And that's for a variety of reasons. First of all of these databases are very complex, and these statisticians should help you in your method section to describe exactly what you have been working with. And it is also good, to be honest with you, for the reputations of our studies if our people are identified with the manuscript that is published. Let's see. The next section is that we want fairly complete information on the lead author. And, of course, in particular, we need a phone number and an email address. We will generally work on an exchange basis through email. Phone calls are all right, but transmission of output is generally done through email. The next item on the proposal form is related to obtaining special sworn status. Now, up here in this list that I gave you on the different features, we expect under our current research strategy that at least one of the researchers on this proposal will become SSS. It takes a bit of effort, but the payoff is enormous for both us and for the research work because we use a new system of interchange and exchange called RODAS. It's called Research Output Direct Access. It allows the individual researchers to be able to sit at their desk and view output directly as it comes off the computer. The output will come off the computer, be put in a folder. The researcher can sit at their desk on their computer and peer into that research. In this way, they will be able to make decisions about next steps without having to go through a full internal review process in order for that information to be released. There are some negatives associated with this. I don't want to dwell on the negatives. The positives are so strong that they totally outweigh the negatives. So, in any case, we would expect at least one and as many as want to become SSS so that they can use RODAS. The next section has to do with whether or not you want to use the RDCs. As pointed out in our videos, the RDC research process is really totally separate from research of our databases as discussed here. We have given to the RDCs an analysis file for both NLMS and NDAC, and they can be used by FSRDC applicants to do research on these databases. The full reference manual is available through the RDCs as well as the analytical database. I'll say more about this a little bit later. At the bottom of the next part of the form, we ask you to give us a general indication of how long you expect to be involved in analysis, in manuscript preparation, and in the intended target for your submission date. And finally on the list, you'll need to complete the rationale, main hypotheses, data set variables, and analysis plan. So I'd like to spend just a couple of seconds on those. This is really the heart of what we're interested in. So we'd like to have a fairly extensive paragraph on these sections. Now, we have sent you the stripped down, that is the PII information removed from the actual proposal forms of the presentations that were given yesterday, so that you can see how those people's presentations and manuscripts in several cases have been generated through the information they provided in the research proposal. So we're looking for a rationale, some kind of a general description of why the research you want to do is important for public health, and why these issues are either current or have been dropped and need to be current. Whatever you think is important to giving you a reason for wanting to do this research. We'd like to then have you state your main hypotheses in a paragraph or so. And in particular, we want you to identify the databases that you intend to use and the variables. Now, one thing that hasn't been mentioned maybe and should be more given to more attention is, as was pointed out in Gino Lavas's presentation yesterday, we invite researchers to bring data sets that they may have developed with very important information from their point of view that we can link up to our data, and this link would generally be done through geographical characteristics such as tract, census block, county, state level information that you may have collected relevant to your interest that we can link up with our databases which have all of those geographical characteristics and therefore add to the ability for you to do more extensive analysis. So that's an important point to mention there. And then we would like to have a description of a paragraph or two or three of your intended analysis plan, the types of modeling you'd like to do. Maybe you have some models of your own that you would like to try out. We can deal with that. But in general, we want a fairly extensive description of your analysis plan. Now, it sounds a little bit daunting, but remember, we're trying to keep this to 3 or 4 pages. And at the very worst, this will force you to think about your research. In any case, there you have it. That if you will complete those sections, you will have completed our research proposal and have a look at the examples that we've given you. So let's see what happens after that. Okay, so now you have a, let's go over here on the top page. Now you have your research proposal prepared, and you would submit that back to the principal investigator that you contacted originally. And I hope you'll be able to identify one of those, but if you really have a problem, you can contact me, and I can steer you to one of those people who might be best able to help you with your research proposal. All right, after the research review period is, after the research proposal is prepared, the principal investigator will submit it for steering committee review. And after that review period, the researcher is notified of the decision, and the approved research will then be assigned to a statistician. So let's go and finish up the process. The steering committee consists of principal investigators from each of the sponsoring agencies. They will be allowed a 2-week review period to examine and review completed proposals that have been submitted through the PI. Principal investigators in their review may give you some suggestions or modifications or say, well, you know what, you can't do this with our data because we just don't have it there, but you could do this as alternatives. In other words, they will try to support your research by giving you additional information. Maybe not, maybe they won't need to, but maybe they will. Maybe they'll know of other publications that you can use in your own research. Generally speaking, the guidelines that the steering committee will be using is they are looking for credible research ideas within the field of public health and scientific research. And you saw the list of the sponsors. Those are the areas of particular interest to them. And so that's one of the guidelines. They will also be looking to see if there is previously research done with our databases on these that you may not be aware of, or if there's currently investigations going on, and they may make suggestions that either encourage you to link up with those current research going on, or perhaps try alternative, slightly different alternative avenues for your own research. They will also be trying to determine if our mortality database supports the identified research. There are topics which our databases do not cover. We have our limitations, and so they'll be happy to point those out if you weren't aware of them. The final thing is that in the end, the research that we do must comply with the Census Bureau's confidentiality and privacy requirements. We are not allowed to release any information that would violate the Bureau's perception of confidentiality or privacy breach. So that would be an additional guideline to be considered by the committee. Once your proposal has been approved after the 2-week period, it will be assigned to a statistician who will coordinate your research project and analyze it using our carry out your modeling and your analysis on our database. Our data is confidential. We have spent a lot of time developing processes and strategies so that we can do the most intimate and most expedient analyses given all of the confidentiality restrictions. And that is why we are now, in item number 4 there, developing a new process. It's totally unique to our projects here at the Census Bureau called RODAS, where you, the investigator, will actually be able to see output as it's produced almost immediately through folders that we have set up that you can access through your own computer at your desk wherever you work. And there's a whole process for setting that up. But that is why we were encouraging you to use RODAS. It saves us an enormous amount of time from disclosure proofing information, and it enables you to do intermediary results almost immediately upon the output being available. So you can change models, you can change categorizations, that kind of thing. Statisticians will do this as they occur and place them in a full output in a folder for you. At the very end, when you've finally gotten down to the place where you have a table that you would really like to have in your own hot hands, you would submit that. We'll disclosure proof it and submit it to the Disclosure Review Board for their review. After they review it, we can provide it to you. The Census Bureau's view on disclosure is that any information in detail that is released is public. That means that even though we'll give you the output, the Bureau's attitude is that anybody can and could end up seeing that table. So that if it's not disclosure proofed, it could get into the wrong hands. And so that's why we've set up the RODAS process. It takes out our need to disclosure proof, allows you, the reviewer, the researcher, to review your materials and make changes. But in the end, we will have to make a disclosure-proofed chart, table, graph, provide coefficients for modeling, which must be reviewed. After the review has been approved, has led to approval, we'll give it to the researcher. This has been a fairly quick coverage of all this. Any follow-up questions we'll take in a few minutes here, and you can send any other questions you can have. Please mail them to our email address as listed there, Census Mortality Studies at census.gov. You can contact through our websites down below anybody on our staff. We're in a section in those websites, or any one of the principal investigators from the sponsoring agencies, should you have questions.